authenticity. It could have been also called letting go of your ego. I mentioned that our annual theme is Be Your Authentic and True Self. What are the characteristics of an authentic person? What would you say? Love, honesty, truth, transparency, humility, courage, acceptance.
Free.
Say that again?
Free.
Free, yes, free. Vulnerability, yes.
Grace.
Kindness.
I said grace.
Grace. Beautiful.
Self-respecting.
Yes, self-respecting. And patience. Yeah. Seems like a lot to embody, yes? But the truth is, you already are that. Do you allow it? An authentic person lives in alignment with those values that we just stated. They live in alignment with, they have a purpose. And they are self-aware. And not self-aware as in, oh, I'm aware of myself, and then not aware of the dynamics of the relationships or the present moment that they are in, but self-aware in, feeling and having an essence of the bigger picture of what's going on. They have an accurate self-appraisal of their own strengths and weaknesses, which requires humility to say, I know where my weaknesses are. Somebody who's authentic is emotionally well regulated, essentially meaning not lots of drama, not lots of being triggered, and yet, as mentioned, able to be vulnerable. And as we mentioned, speaks the truth and speaks it not to be in your face, but speaks it with love and serenity because it just is. And this person doesn't live in fear to be who they are, but not in an arrogant or egotistical fashion. So my lesson comes from two sources today. My last lesson, I talked about Finding Me. It was an ebook, and that group is still meeting. We'll be meeting for the third time coming up. I need to set the date and time. But we've been going through that book, and it's an ebook, and it's got only about 5 chapters. But there are some contemplative exercises to do to take yourself deeper into the who am I? How do I find me? And then also, again, the book by Reverend Dr. Dennis Merritt Jones, who is a retired Science of Mind minister. And this book is easy to read and has lots of good nuggets, so I'll be taking pieces from the book. On page 18, Dr. Dennis Merritt Jones mentions that we all, of course, live horizontally in the world. Here's the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing that I do. And so essentially, clearly in our life, we go along frequently in our capacity of the day, interacting with the outside and bringing that in. And one of the concepts that's presented in the book, but we also want to live vertically, that is, diving down, asking the who am I, and bringing who we truly are to the surface in that horizontal living. Bringing the authentic life and living from the inside out. So horizontally, we all know society likes labels, for better or for worse. And those labels may be gender related. I'm male, I'm female, mother, daughter. Again, those labels may be based on who you're in partnership with, who you are at work, what's your role, could be your hobbies. I'm a musician, I'm a singer. Those are the labels that we use. And vertically, we ask the question, who am I really? I'm love. I am a spiritual presence. I am life with a capital L. I am one. I am one and whole. I am divine. And if you heard my previous lesson, I am that I am. Now, in chapter 9 of the book, the 7 intrinsic qualities of an authentic person, you just saw in the affirmations. And we want to remember that we are all unique, and yet we are still one. You've heard my metaphor before, if you've heard my lessons. You know, if we had a fight within our body that we needed all heart cells, the system wouldn't work. We have heart cells, blood cells, pancreatic cells, you name it, and it all works as one. And so it is with humanity. We are each divinely unique, and yet we are whole and we are one. I loved the quote from Rumi. The lamps are different, but the light is the same. One matter, one energy, one light mind, endlessly emanating all things. So why are we here? It's our spiritual practice to learn to commingle the soul, the vertical, and the body, the horizontal. Bringing those together in conscious awareness, bringing our vertical, our unique self into our daily living. On page 23, bring what you are, love, peace, light, wisdom, joy, creativity, into the expression of who you are in this present moment here on earth. Now, in order to do that, I am suggesting that we must surrender. And that may not be easy for us because, you know, in our society, it's drive. What are we doing next? You know, it's as we're living, you know, what are they doing? What are they doing? And then how do I mold? How do I fit in? And the ego tends to use labels, but in order to find our authentic self, we want to let go of those labels. And then when you say, well, we're letting go of those labels, if I'm not male, female, mother, father, daughter, employee, musician, who am I? And the first thing our mind tends to want to do is, what would the next label be? Who am I? I don't know who I am. But the truth is that who you are is not a label. The label's just there to describe who are you when you are being, which is a feeling, an essence. The first song, when she spoke about it's just one step to your heart to be your authentic self. It's beyond the labels. It's not about who am I, now I got to find a label. It's who am I? Who am I expressing? Who am I being? And there's words for that, but there's not really words for that. Does that make sense? Words are just the sign. Go that way. But it's not the sign itself that is it. Dr. Ernest Holmes said, "There is an urge to express in all people, and this urge, operating through the channels of creative mind, capital C, capital M, operating through the channels of the creative mind, looses energy into action and compels the individual to do something." So one more time. There is an urge to express in all people, and this urge, operating through creative mind, looses energy into action and compels the individual to do something. So Mo, were you compelled to sing that song? There was something there I know vibrating in you because I know you as a musician, and I know when the song hit you, there was something like, I want to do something with that. That was authentic. Of course, as we live in society, we tend to find things that then we use those labels. And most of us, our ego feels more comfortable when we're in control and wanting to drive to make something happen. And a lot of times when we see things from the outside in, we're trying to drive to make it look like that, or look like that, or look like that. And sometimes we have ego in overdrive. Anybody experience that? No. It's everybody else. So whether it's trying to fit in or being accepted in a crowd or in society, trying to match and being in an uncomfortable place where it doesn't match. Most of you know that I'm gay, and I will tell you in college, it was like, yeah, I dated men and I love men, but the attraction wasn't there for me. I always wanted to be with those women. And that was very difficult. It took a lot of deep questioning. I was born and raised as a Catholic. I didn't want to be outcasted by my family or my faith, which is why I'm here, by the way. But there wasn't something lining up for me. And I knew that if I was going to be following relationships with men, that I was going to be giving myself up. I have another example for you as far as authenticity. This lesson title came like a month ago. Most of the speakers, we have a title that we give to Crystal a month in advance. But I just love how Spirit brings things to match the lesson. So I have a friend who's in his late 50s, and before the pandemic, he was not highly social or introverted, and he is a caretaker for a family member, works full-time, again, has a family. So post-pandemic, for many of us, was sort of challenges relationally, right? We know that based on today's mental health and how well we don't really support enough mental health. Our system is not working for that. And so my friend basically said, I lost a lot of connections during COVID. I felt like things were off, and I just wasn't being able to rebound. So his first opportunity to surrender to his ego was to seek help with a therapist. Now, why should that be something to be courageous? Because there's a stigma. Society, outside in, versus I'm struggling, I need help, inside out. And so this person chose to do professional development for more than 2 years. And that took a lot of courage. A lot of courage to stick with it, a lot of dedication and commitment, a lot of asking questions. Oh yeah, I think I know myself. I like these favorite foods and I like this color. But why is it uncomfortable for me to connect with people? What is that? Again, this person's 50 years old, asking these questions that have sort of known throughout his lifetime, but it just became exaggerated through COVID. Why is there a disconnection here? There would be anxiety when connecting with people. And the person loves doing problem solving. So usually, when connecting with somebody, it's immediately, let's get into problem solving and not really anything relational. Like, hi, how are you doing today? Things going good for you? Let's get past those emotions and into the good stuff. So after going to therapy, there was a lot of new ways to try to communicate and connect to people. And he said it was awkward. He was really slow at it because he wasn't used to approaching or saying things a certain way. And so it was awkward at first. It didn't feel authentic, but needed to practice. And after practice, it became more natural. And then the therapist said, let's do some testing. And the person found out that they have a light case of Asperger's. There's another opportunity to surrender there. I don't want to accept this. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not broken. Who said you were broken? Again, another stigma, another disability. I've actually been watching TED Talks, and it's like, it's not really a disability. It's that society has built things that don't help the neurodivergent thrive. Yeah. One woman was talking about they did an experiment, and they had neurodivergent folks doing an exercise, non-neurodivergent folks doing an exercise, and then a blend in the middle. Hey, there was no problem with the two ends. The problem was the communication between the two. Fascinating. But what we do when we say people are disabled, and sort of like, we used to have curbs that weren't cut out, we made them for disabled people. There's lots of pregnant people in the world. There's lots of people who need, walkers, whatever the case may be. Oh, not just for disabled people, for me. So he said, I didn't want to open that can of worms when I was diagnosed. But what really got me was when he said, I realized I didn't really just want to think about the fact that maybe only my wife and my son would be at my funeral. And that, he said, needed to change. So he goes, so I took that can of worms and I dumped it out on the table. And I said, okay, let's start going through this. What does this mean? What does this really mean?
Catch a big fish.
Yeah, catch some big fish. I can't explain to you, and of course I can't reverberate his words because they were so real and so authentic, but he said, I feel a freedom. A freedom. Because I've opened myself to who I authentically am. I was like, can I take this for my lesson? Beautiful. Labels can be harming. Because we think then we understand, oh, here's the label. That means this and this and this and this and this and this. But does it? And we won't know until we get beyond the words. Which is why we feel it's important to do meditation and contemplation. Get beyond the words. Connect to what shows up from within and bubbles out and presents itself to you. That's your uniqueness. That's your divinity. That is your call, your purpose. But we have to quiet the mind. Why? Because the mind, yak, tells stories. The ego was like, you're wrong, I'm right. I'm not going to apologize because I was right. It's another place to be authentic. Do you want to be love or do you want to be right? It's a choice. I had my own experience where I was talking to somebody and they weren't getting direct communication and felt isolated. So I said something to somebody about, hey, you should reach out to this person because they're not getting the information directly. Well, it came back that that person who I had talked to felt I had violated their trust. And that hurt me because that was, of course, not my intention. And it hurt me that I hurt somebody else. And so the next time, I called them, I apologized, I talked to them later, trying to rebuild, and I didn't feel like they were returning back. They were still cold. And I was like, okay, what else can I do? Continue my prayer, surround that person in love and light, and if there's anything else that shows up for me that I can do for them, I will do it. But I don't need to tell them that I still think I was right. What good does that do? So to be authentic means to go beyond the labels and to surrender. Don't let the ego try to talk you into. In the case of apologizing, what did I lose? I gained humility. Why does the ego think you're going to lose something? Like, do you disintegrate the minute the ego's gone? No, because there's wholeness. You are all those things: love, light, peace, power, beauty, joy, beyond the ego. That doesn't go away. That is your truth. So to be your authentic self requires some time to be alone, some time to be dedicated just to listen. Just to listen. And then to have the courage to live from that authentic self, where then you will find your freedom, the love that you are, the serenity of being your authentic, unique self. And so I hope as you go into this week, you get a chance to do your spiritual practice and perhaps allow for that authentic self to come through. Namaste.